Yum, 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 yum. Let's code review. Hello people! I wrote an entry on the Ludum Dare page if someone was interested to get a code review of their project or the C# code. I thought about this, that there's a lot of playtesting now, but I don't think that the most of the people check the code. And this Ludum Dare and this game jam principle is about sharing. And I wanted also to give something back, and there's just my experience in my C# code and Unity projects that I've gained over the years, and I hope I can give something back with it during the game jam. Maybe I can help someone. The code review, it's not about to crush someone and say like, hey, what kind of code is this? There's something not good. No, it's about helping each other and maybe show new ideas how you can implement some features. I remember as I have my first mentor, and he told about me and talked about my code, and it was very helpful for me to gain new insights and understand what kind of tricks you can use and to get your code more beautiful, or to get some features more easier implemented. So let's get on with it and check some code. What do you think? So we will talk about the game Don't Shoot Yourself. This is the main menu, and you have here four possibilities what you can do: audio, quit, level, select, or play. So in the beginning we talk about the controls, how you can fire, how you can dash, and the first level is a tutorial level. You cannot shoot through the barrier, so you have to shoot from the other side, and you have to be careful that you don't hit yourself. So after the first tutorial, it gets then into the real matter, and you have to fight towards bosses. So and here you can see the bullets are traveling through the screen. I have to be careful I don't hit myself. And the boss here is continuing shooting me with his own big laser. And as the level progresses, you will then fight towards harder bosses. So the first one that gave me an answer, that was from Sered. So I went over to the page and to check out their game and their project. And what I could see was the link to the GitHub account, and I really like it. GitHub, it's my favorite source repository also for my game. So I opened the project now, and on my first site, what I like is that on the top level everything seems like organized. You have then the different materials, you have the scripts, you have the scenes. I don't have the feeling it's really like a chaotic way here. So I think you had done this very well. It's very organized, and especially what I always like to have one specific folder for script and source. What I sometimes do is that I create inside the source folder itself new folders and do there a new structure. Like in this example, we had the boss. So I see here a couple of bosses, like final boss and first boss. Then you could have something like a folder for all the different bosses, or the tutorial stuff. You can like place it there in then one folder. But that's only a suggestion. I don't think I did it myself, but that's a very often way when you do it in source codes and big projects. You try to do split up the codes in smaller folders. I just went over to my own project for Ludum Dare 47 to check what I did, and I did add some subfolders for different topics, like my utils, where I have the feeling it doesn't really belong that to the game logic itself. It's just like different stuff you can use. Even it doesn't even have to be project related. It's something like when I go to the next game jam, I maybe check then the utils. Okay, what can I reuse of the utils I've created? And what I also did have this folder data, and here I have my scriptable objects, and what was for the data concerning the levels. Now I went over to code, I opened in the Visual Studio. What I see is that most of the files are really small. So there are no big class I've seen that where you put everything inside here. I think that's very good. It's a very good approach to try to split up code as much as you can. This will reduce the complexity in some big method, like where you have 500 lines, 400 lines, and all the logic is in there. Now if something like gets wrong, it's really hard to understand it. But your approach here, I will recommend it. It's a very good one you did. It's a very good decision by you that you created the small classes. So I think I have found a place where you can reduce the amount of lines. We are here in the update method, and we first check if it's the boss. If it's the boss, we can go on the boss and get the in startup value. Then, depending on if it's true or false, we then execute an animation or not. But since this true and false value is the same as in the startup value, we could then just place the in startup value inside here, and then we could just remove this code. Furthermore, if we don't need this value to provide it outside, or it's not really that important, then we could in fact also just add it inside there directly, and then we will have reduced it a lot. But that's his only assumption. That's why I will just leave it for now like this. And if you go down here, we can also see it's also the same, but just here we go on the final boss, but it's the same procedure here. So I can just place this one in here, and then we will just execute it. So now you have seen the amount of code lines have been reduced, and you can you see then more directly on one side what's going on here. I went back to the Unity project. I wanted to understand how the boss laser is working. I found the boss, here in this case the first boss, and below I found its boss laser. Here's the boss laser, and the boss laser has a reference to its boss. So it seems like that the laser is always as a child object of its boss. So I check out now level 3. Here I have my boss, the final boss, and below I can find boss laser. And the boss laser has a reference to the heart, the final boss. In this case we have multiple lasers. So if I go back now to the code, I can see we are trying to get the same reference even though we have it. This I don't think we have to do it like that way. If we are not sure if those two references are being set, it's finally good, or for me fine, to use get component to get its reference. But there's another method in Unity you can use in order to get the component, and that's a get component parent. Since we are, or it's from my observation what I could see, the boss laser is always a child object of the boss. So now we should get our reference from first boss and final boss, no matter what, if the scene has been correctly set up or not. So I would like to talk about the boss concept. I think we can do something about it. Since we can see here that the first and final boss have the same function. They are both using the in startup function. What is the idea that in this case we don't really have to care if it's the first or the final boss if we want to have this value. So what we can do is we can use the interface. So I will create an interface with iBoss. And I will go then to the first boss. I will implement it here. And then I go down here to the method in startup. And then I say, pull it up, please. And now we will see this method. It's now contained in the interface. Now the first boss has it. Now we go over to final boss and add it also. And now what we can do is a bit different magic. We just use the interface. So I will just and there we have our boss. And now we can here just say, now we don't really have to care if it's a final or the first one, since this is the same. So we can say is startup so now we have this reduced, we have this one, and we have removed this one. So, but there's a difference, right? There's a difference between the final boss and the first boss, and that's the trigger value between those. So we want still to want to keep that different. So what we can now do is we go back to the interface and we say we want the string value, and that's the, I would just call it trigger value, and we can do it as probably, well, let's stay with the function. So now we have a trigger value. We go back now to the final boss and we will see, he will say, ah, there's something missing, please give it to me. And we will implement the interface, and here it is. And now we can just do it in a more simpler way. So let's go back to the boss. So I had just now the final boss, and the final boss is using this one in startup. So now we need the same thing also for the first boss. And here it's not is in starting up, sondern is shooting. So now we can even simplify this one, and here we just can say boss and get trigger value. And that's it. So using interfaces, Unity is a good way to get common stuff that's the same for many different of implementation. So in this way, maybe if you may do the next game jam and you're not quite sure how many bosses will you create, since maybe you create 2 bosses, maybe create 4 bosses. If you have this generic ground for it, then you maybe could create more bosses. Then in the end, like, oh, we have it already generic up, I just have to implement the interface and return different values, and maybe I get 1 more boss then for the game jam. As I found this script tutorial barrel, I directly know what's the meaning of it. I could remind me on the tutorial level where this big barrier was there, and it was directly that what I was thinking about. And that's also a good sign for a good code. when I see a name of a class, an object, and I directly knows what this is about. And here it's a good example of keeping this stuff small and don't have large classes. I like really this approach here. So you have just your collider is checking, I have a collision, give me the laser, this is a tutorial, it shall not be, I want to destroy, therefore the game object. So here I really like it that way. So congratulations guys, very good. So we're done, well done, good job. You have finished your entry, and I think you have done a decent coding here. It's definitely a fundamental way you can continue in your future game jams, and I wish you all the best for your future. Keep up doing this good stuff, and we will maybe see us on the next game jam. So guys, we see you around. Bye bye.